I'm Susan Euler. In this program, we're going to look at Impressionism, one of the most influential styles of the modern era. In December 1873, a group of young French artists formed an artist cooperative, calling themselves the Cooperative and Anonymous Association of Painters, Sculptors, and Engravers. Their goal was to exhibit their works independently in their own art galleries. This seems normal today, but in the 19th century, such a move represented a bold break with tradition. For over 200 years, ever since King Louis XIV had established the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture in 1648, French artists were expected to exhibit only at government-sponsored shows, informally known as salons. The most important salon exhibit, the Salon de Paris, was held once a year at the Louvre. Artists who wished to earn a living by selling their work, at least selling their work in France, had to exhibit at the Salon de Paris. To not exhibit meant no one would buy your work, and to be rejected was a disgrace, compounded by the fact that the jury would stamp a big red R on the back of the canvas, refused. The ink was indelible. It couldn't be removed, so the canvas was ruined. It could never be sold or repainted. Artists were faced with the unhappy choice of just keeping the rejected work, destroying it, or throwing it away. The men and women who founded the Artist Cooperative in 1873 are known today as the Impressionists. They included Claude Monet and Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Camille Pissarro and Alfred Sisley, Paul Cézanne and Berthe Morisot, and Edgar Degas. Although they had already achieved some success as artists, they had grown sick and tired of having nearly all of their paintings rejected by conservative salon judges who condemned any artwork not done in the approved style. And in France, that approved style was classicism. Refusing to become painters in the classical tradition, the Artist Cooperative held their first independent exhibit in April 1874. It was at this show that one critic dubbed them the Impressionists, basing his remark on a painting by Monet entitled Impression Sunrise. The name stuck. Impressionism was born. It's a common misperception that the first Impressionist show was panned by the critics. Well, some did hate it. That was to be expected. But others had many positive things to say. And young artists, the ones who shared the vision of the Impressionists that there needed to be a new, different, more modern style of art in France, well, they loved it. Looking at Impressionist art from the perspective of people living in the 21st century, the style seems tame, even old-fashioned, and it is old-fashioned in many ways. After all, the first Impressionist show took place nearly 150 years ago, only 10 years after the Civil War. But to people living in the 19th century, in 1874, Impressionism was very edgy, very modern, very avant-garde and daring. Now, how can this be? Impressionism is beautiful and it depicts attractive people and lovely landscapes and bright, fresh colors. Ah, but those are the very things that made it daring. Let's go back to the salon style, the style that had dominated French art since the time of Louis XIV. In the 18th and 19th centuries, that style became known as neoclassicism or new classicism. Neoclassical painting can be spectacular, as this work by Jacques-Louis David demonstrates. But it can also be trite, contrived, and formulaic. The Impressionists argued that neoclassicism, with its slick, impersonal brushwork and emphasis on Greek and Roman subject matter, was not relevant to the modern world. They wanted to show real people living ordinary lives, not ancient Roman emperors and Greek goddesses. So this is the first element of Impressionism that seemed new and different to 19th century eyes: the subject matter. The Impressionists painted the people they saw around them without interjecting social, political, or moral comment. Of course, showing ordinary people living everyday lives is not a new concept. Genre painting had been a popular style since the 17th century. Unlike Impressionism, however, earlier genre painting had a strong narrative quality. People were shown doing something, and there was usually a moral message somewhere. Bad guys being punished, good guys being rewarded, and so on. This was especially true in the 18th and 19th centuries. People in the Impressionist paintings are neither good nor bad. They are simply living their lives. It's the original Seinfeld concept, a show about nothing. You have probably noticed another thing that's different about Impressionism. The colors seem brighter and more vibrant than those used in the non-Impressionist works. When the Impressionists first exhibited their paintings, these bright colors seemed garish and overdone to some people. But this criticism was short-lived. The vibrant Impressionist color palette soon became widely accepted. There are several reasons why Impressionist paintings are more brightly colored than traditional art. First, the Impressionists preferred these kinds of colors. They seem modern. For a time, they even banned the use of the color black. Monet, for example, never used black, even for shadows, using very dark shades of blue, purple, and green instead. Then there was the second reason for Impressionist color. The oil paints themselves had become brighter thanks to new technology that created artificial pigments in lots of new colors, not available to previous generations of artists. And finally, there was the way the Impressionists prepared their canvases and applied the paint. Oil painting was invented in the 15th century during the Renaissance. At first, artists painted on wood, but then they discovered that canvas, which is a heavy cloth, could be stretched over wooden stretcher bars to create a lightweight alternative. To keep the paint from soaking into the canvas, a ground made of a white plaster called gesso was applied to make a smooth painting surface. To obtain the golden tonality associated with oil painting, artists would then paint over the gesso with a wash of brown or sepia paint, as shown here in this unfinished painting by Leonardo da Vinci. This was the method used by all artists from the 15th through the 19th centuries, until the Impressionists changed the traditional method of working. Instead of first applying a brown wash, the Impressionists applied their paint directly over the white gesso. This gives their colors a brighter, fresher, more highly saturated look. They were also influenced by a scientific book on color theory published in 1855 by Michel Chevreul. This book concerns how the eye blends colors together to form new shades. Look at a field of grass. From a distance, it looks like a uniform green, but up close, it is made up of many different shades, ranging from yellow and brown to chartreuse. This natural phenomenon inspired the Impressionists to paint using taches of different colors, placed closely together to make their paintings look more like nature. The Impressionists exhibited together 7 more times, holding their last show in 1886. During the intervening 12 years that separated the first from the last Impressionist exhibit, Cézanne and Renoir, and later Monet and Morisot dropped out. But new artists joined, including Gustave Caillebotte and the American Mary Cassatt. By the time of the last show in 1886, Paul Signac and Georges Seurat, 2 artists working in the post-impressionist style known as pointillism, were exhibiting with the group, something Monet used as an excuse for leaving. Pissarro was the only one of the original Impressionists who exhibited in all 8 shows. Although none of the artists got rich solely through exhibiting with the Impressionists, the publicity launched their careers. By the late 1880s, Impressionism had become a well-established and well-respected style. As for the Impressionists themselves, well, they had moved on to other subject matter, a more abstract painting style, and the use of more expressive color. This made their work that had seemed so edgy 12 years earlier look very tame indeed. For the 10-Minute Professor, this is Susan Ray Euler. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure you watch our next program.